This is Everything Exposed. My name is Derek. I'm speaking with Ann Halffolder.
Affholder.
How you doing? Yeah. So the issue that we're going to discuss today is the outcasting of criminally convicted individuals. That have a past, and we're going to get into your past. We're going to get a few things discussing, how reintegration into society makes, how they're viewed sometimes and how difficult it can be. We're going to also get into like how difficult it could be for families, how difficult it could be for, friends, and the burdens that can cause an overwhelming and discouragement to people to support in those situations. And we're gonna cover it all. The first thing I wanted to ask you was about, I know you've been incarcerated before. How old were you when you first got arrested, and what was it for?
The very first time
Yeah.
was when I was 20, and it was for disbursement of methamphetamine. It was for sales. And I still lived in the state of Delaware.
So you're from Delaware? Like
Originally, yeah.
From Delaware, okay, right. Yeah.
The second time was when I was 50. I'd been away for 24 years. When I got arrested when I was 20, that's how I ended up here with my family up here. And I spent the majority of my life up here. So I had been away from any kind of drugs or drug use or anything for 24 years before it's spurred up again in my life.
Wow. So, looking back at that time, like, what are some of the reasons you think you turned into, drug and alcohol? What kind of led you there?
Well, I grew up in a family that was history of addiction, mostly alcohol, and then there was abuse. There was, just feelings of rejection, I guess. So trying to fill those voids that are missing when you're a child that you see out there that you're supposed to have. So you're trying to find it. Media and everything else makes everything look like love can be grand, and you find the right person, and you're running through the tulips and this and that and the third, and really it can really be quite the opposite, and it can just progressively get worse as you go on.
Yeah. So, I just wanted to make sure I iterated you. You also attend Church Calvary's Love. I used to go there. You influenced me. We used to work at Outback together, just to let y'all give some background information on the situation. But yeah. So when it comes to background, as far as drinking at like an early age and indulging in issues, like, was it more like therapeutic that led to criminal, or leading to therapeutic? Like what do you think? Did I phrase that correctly? Did you catch me on that one?
Well, I started drinking and whatnot at 13. By the time I was 15 years old, I was shooting up methamphetamine. And I ran with that until I was 20. The time that I was arrested, I was dating a dealer, and I made a deal for a friend of mine, and it was a setup. But still, at that point in time, I was more of a user than, So when I moved up here to New York, they told my family here that I had a 15% chance of kicking my habit and probably 3 months to live if I didn't. And I kicked it. I left it behind me. I had my son, the whole 9 yards that I had to deal with, and I made some choices that I thought were in his best interest, and focused on trying to keep my life or get my life together, because I was definitely not where I was supposed to be or should have been in life. But that's what drugs will do. It'll steal everything that you have that's any kind of logic or whatever. By the time I was 20, it was more of use and trying to do a favor for somebody at that point in time, whereas when I was 50, it was more of a financial compensation. It wasn't really an addiction that I was fighting with to fight off. I could control it because I had already been out of control.
Yeah.
I knew where that took me. but it was definitely a um, financial compensation during a time where things were starting to fall apart for because I was self-employed. I had my own company, and things that had nothing to do with me were causing the income to drop.
Yeah.
I had a title researching company, and counties were starting to do a lot of in-county searching with the internet. So my need to be in counties and be accessible was not as needed.
Yeah.
And then I had a large client that lost their largest client.
So a few things happened
Right.
that kind of led to you having to keep up with the bills.
Correct.
And hold up a certain way of life.
Correct.
So just to go into prison, where other what spots were you in New York when you went to when you
I spent a year in county, in Broome County, then was transferred down to Bedford, which was the max prison where they all go through for intake and whatnot. I was there for like a month or more, and then I did the rest of my time up in Albion, which is a medium security prison up in Orleans County.
So during the time that you was incarcerated, did you ever were you ever offered any type of therapeutic programs?
From the very jump start, I was never offered a drug program. I was never offered any kind of a deal. They went for me hardcore, and they stuck with it the whole time.
So I said the main thing that we focus on is it's also therapeutic. When we look at people that are incarcerated and they are looked at like whoever takes the first deal in a situation wins. Does that totally exclude the other person from being able to give therapy if they have a drug issue too? Like, did you just get the most time? How does that really roll?
I'm not really sure exactly, but it was under my understanding that especially with my conviction before was 32 years prior to the current time, and even those charges had been pardoned, but I was still considered whatever the case may be, and it was offered no kind of drug program. But if something holds on to you for that many years to where it's easy for you to fall back into that,
yeah,
obviously there's something that runs deep. Broome County did offer a number of religious programs or whatever that you could attend from. It was Catholic, and then they had Christian, and then they had the group that comes in and leaves the Bibles in the hotels and all that stuff. They would come once a month, but the Catholic and the Christian were every week. So I made sure I threw myself into that every chance that I could get.
Have you ever been in any therapeutic programs since, like an outside outreach or like inpatient or
Never
residential?
Never
programs?
inpatient. I did when I was 20. I went through some counseling. It was a requirement for me to be released upstate to my family up here in upstate New York. So that was the only time that I had done counseling, and I was raised Catholic, so the whole program of non-denominational worship and Christianity was all new to me. But I also, that was all that they offered. But when you go upstate, they don't offer the extensive Christian or religious programs that you
have,
had.
which
So I kind of
a
missed
certain amount of level that.
Right. It was either it was either Catholic or I think the other one was Protestant.
Protestant services, yeah.
Right.
So how do you think your incarceration had affected your friends, your family? How do you think? How did they have to adapt? Or that from the way that you remember? How do you feel that some of your closest family members and friends?
Well, it was a financial burden to begin with for one aspect, and it was also an embarrassment because I was pretty publicly spread out there on media and in the newspaper. It just was very well exposed, and it was an embarrassment as well as a disappointment, because my family up here had gotten me away from that 24 years ago, and here I ended up back there again. Not everybody was very forgiving, or they were slow to communicate with me and accept, you know what I mean? So needless to say, that was a little bit of a problem, I would say. But one thing that was made very clear to me when we go through a program of ASAP when you're in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And it's for awareness of drugs and effects and you know, the circles of addiction and abuse and codependencies and all that stuff that you're required to take. And I had an incredible instructor for that. And his advice was to make it clear to my family, I want you to take the time, think of everything how you feel about this situation, and express it to me. And I'm going to express what I have to say, and we're never going to discuss it again.
All right.
It was the smartest advice I'd gotten through anything, and that's how it has been with my family, both my blood family and my family here, was to open up and say, you know, because I was able to say, don't forget, I was successful at one point in time. I didn't always make stupid decisions. I didn't always pick the wrong people.
You have an ability to bounce back. You're resilient.
Correct.
And don't count me out. This
Right.
is the main thing you're trying
Right, just because what I happened to do, my mistake happened to be huge. But, you know, I tend to be that way. I'm like, I like kind of go big or go home, you know? So why would you expect my mistake to be anything less than what I am, right? So, but we were able to express those things, and we've never brought up anything ever since I've been home.
All right. So what about, you have any kids? Like, how did...
I had a son, Michael, but he passed away 2 years ago, November 13th at 7:15.
How did that happen? What happened? What led to his death? I'm sorry about that, first and foremost. But I do also want to let the viewers know that I do know about the death. This is a friend of mine. So, you know, we're going to keep it on the stove here. And I'm going to let you know, viewers know how she feels, you know, maybe some choices that she may have made have affected and maybe caused a result. You know, maybe her son was... Go ahead.
He passed away from addiction to alcohol. And 38 years old, master's degree in sociology.
Yeah.
Popular, handsome. This is his picture over here behind me.
Show it to some video, because yeah.
This is
John?
Michael.
That's
Clayton.
Michael, yeah.
Michael Clayton. I didn't give my son up. I gave him a better life. You know, I was very active in his life in the whole 9 yards, and even when I got back into, he was a grown up before. I made sure he was very protected through anything, because I didn't want him thinking, oh, this is why she didn't raise me to begin with. How could she be going back to that? And I kept everything, well, like I said, until he was grown up. But everything was very well hidden from him until it wasn't, and then it was really blown up. Of course, it was an embarrassment to him. You know, he loved me very much, and we had a very good relationship as far as talking and whatnot. So, but it just was, I had to explain to him, and if you really think about it, the difference between me and a lot of the people he was hanging out with is mom got caught. Yeah. It wasn't a lifestyle that he wasn't, you know, because right now it's become a majority in our society, the use of drugs and this and that, whether it's recreational, whether they're wearing a suit or whether they're wearing sweatpants. You know, it's out there, and it's influencing communities and people, and it's whoever's unlucky to get caught and who didn't, you know.
So you think you being arrested and maybe not being offered a deal, an alternative to prison or jail, may have had some type of impact on your son, because
it was an embarrassment.
You had to go to prison,
it was
and you wasn't offered like a opportunity to fix the problem. Really, you were just criminalized, is what you're saying.
It was an embarrassment because, you know, sometimes we're raised and we were led to believe that, you know, you keep your ill people hidden, you don't make it public. Lock them in the attic, lock them in the basement, keep everything hush-hush. And, you know, here I was exposed. I was out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But a lot of problems with Michael's addiction was because you keep it silent, you keep it hidden. When I'm guaranteed, you know, most people at this point in time are in recovery as opposed to never being exposed or never being addicted to it, you know? It just was a situation of where, you know, I'm sure it wasn't easy on him. I'm quite sure it wasn't easy on him. You know.
How old was he when it happened? Like around when you found when he actually had to deal with that? Like
well, I was arrested when I was 50.
How old was he? Yeah.
Yeah. So he was. Oh, come on now, 30. In his late 20s, early 30s.
Is that around?
Calculate, because he came home. He was living in Colorado. and he came home to be in my house 6 months before was released, and I was released in 2018. So Michael was 20. I was, just that's where, you got me on the spot with asking me about how old he was. I know how old he was when I passed away.
When he passed
he's
away.
about, when he passed away. So, like I said, he's in late 20s, early 30s. And,
Okay.
I'm not going to give
Was he already, like, at that point in time, was he kind of already...
He was already Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he was always the life of the party, the whole 9 yards, you know what I mean?
So you think the overwhelmment of how the situation, how he had to deal with you, how
I can tell you,
incarcerated.
I can almost nail down the exact, because like I said, we were a real case of nature versus nurture. I can almost tell you at the time where his drinking became more than casual, it became breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it was something that was private on his part that happened with his woman out in Colorado and had nothing to do.
So it was really a bad breakup or some kind of mixy situation.
It was worse than just a breakup, but yeah. And then after that, it would just be one thing after another that didn't encourage him to not stop, or
was the most motivating factors to continue going with the addiction.
Because it becomes bigger than you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you hang with the same people. And, the same people don't always want the same thing for you. Whether you think they do, your friends are not always your friends. Any friend who wants to offer you a drug or a drink when you're in sobriety is not a friend. You know what I mean? It should be, and people don't realize that. It's like, no, I don't care. Find another way to have a good time or stay away. And, we all fall to that lure of whatever, because in order to get away from addictions, you have to change people, places, and things. That's no joke.
Yeah, so
that is true. But when you're in the process, you get to a point in your life where you cannot go back to where you were. Okay? And you can't stay where you're at, but you're afraid to move forward. Because is God going to replace the fellowship, the communication with people, the friend that's going to call and say, or somebody to call up and do something with, and it just is. So you hold on to this, and I still struggle with this in this situation right now. You know what I mean? There's people that I stay in touch with that some people say I shouldn't. You know what I mean? And then there's people that I'm afraid that I can't rely on, that say they're going to be there because I don't know them, because you don't have that history.
So it leads back to people, places, and things.
It sure does.
Like who you're most comfortable with most of the time that leads you back into a circle. You don't want to totally isolate yourself. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you feel like an outcast to just everybody, because hey, this is your circle, is what you're saying.
Right.
And you kind of gravitate back to that. And just kind of...
and not everybody has your best interest at heart. You have to remember that.
And some of them are still getting high, but they're still doing stuff.
And some of them, I would like for them to come with me. Like I said,
and you can't bring them, huh?
And you can't bring them.
They don't want to. They don't want to come with you. You're like, yo, everybody brands me as this already.
Right.
But you know what? I'm gonna go do this.
But you know what? And the whole thing with this is, I a lot of times I'm torn between those situations. You know what I mean? I still drink. You know what I mean? And there's times where I can't say I've been drunk, but I quit drinking for 5 years completely. I can't say that I wouldn't go out and get drunk or blistered, but I can't picture myself wanting that. You know what I mean? So that part of me has changed. You know what I mean? And it was just I have no desire to go out and do shots and drink doubles and just get obliterated. That's all part of growing up, I think. And not everybody can handle that, or not everybody can control that. But it's definitely something that I have to keep in mind, that if I want to have a glass of wine with dinner, I have to make sure I'm having dinner with somebody who's not going to say, hey, let's go close the bar down after dinner. You know what I mean? That glass of wine, we're going to have dinner with a cup of coffee or something like that, because, emotions get a hold of you, life gets a hold of you, life can get ugly. So, I'm not in the perfect spot. I mean, I'm not hypocritical. I attend the groups at our church, but I don't go to the prevailing over addiction. I go to the boundaries, the supports, to try and help me understand why I went there to begin with. Because if somebody sees me out having dinner in a restaurant, I'm having a glass of wine, I want to say, oh, But she's it. No,
Yeah.
because it's not like that. Because
Getting back to your church real quick, Calvary's Love.
Yes.
It's in Johnson City, guys. It's a really good church, way up the hill past Oakdale Mall. It's
Yes.
a really good spot. I've been there several times.
Michael loved it too.
Yes,
Michael
it's
loved
an
it too.
excellent crowd. The pastor and his wife, they're the best. They put on a very good sermon. They give good messages.
Yes.
I noticed that you guys last year, y'all went to what is it? Southeast Thailand in Asia. You took a flight down there and pretty much had given charity for a charity cause.
Evangelism.
Right?
Well, it was missions, yes. And this year coming up, it's going to be Ghana in March and Thailand again in October.
Okay, so isn't a trip to Africa or something coming up
Ghana.
or something?
Yeah,
Ghana. Okay, all right. Yeah, shoot, I've never left the pond. I never left the side of the lake. I never have.
It's an amazing experience.
Yeah.
An amazing experience, and when you've been humbled. I grew up very comfortably. I can't lie. I still have those flavors. You know what I'm saying? But I've learned how to prioritize, and some people would disagree with that. But from where I came from and where my siblings are in life, I'm way, way, way below, and I'm okay with that because I'd rather be out there and relating to the people that need, and it's so much more, a lot of mental health is the cause behind addictions. They get to a point of desperation.
And incarceration, if they're not built to be placed in that type of environment, I believe it can be untherapeutic. It can have an adverse effect. It can make a person.
Well, you know what? You have to be careful where you get involved because you don't want to be where you feel like somebody, housewife, is bored and they want to be able to go to the country club and say, "Oh, now I worked with these people." We don't want to be their pet project or their you know what I mean, to make them feel better because their life is empty.
Yeah.
You have to be around people that really care, that are willing to understand why. You can't help somebody if you can't put yourself in the position of why did you go there to begin with.
You can't fix the problem.
You can't fix the problem.
Yeah, so you got to start the foundation. Sometimes we just start right at the issue of you just got caught with drugs or you just got arrested. And
realize that I can rise above it. I mean, I've been on house arrest basically since I've been home, and I've owned my home since 1997. And there's days if I have too many people come over, I start to get nervous. What are the neighbors going to think? This, that, and the third. You know what I mean? I work evenings. I'd work until 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of people. I stay up later. I sleep in later. So my company might come at a different time that's not acceptable.
You're getting judged by society based on
the neighbor
history.
across the street can have their light on all night and they can stay up all night, and it's
problem.
okay. But if I have my light on all night, I feel like, oh my God, what are they thinking? It's just, And so here I've been living in house arrest, basically in my own home, because I know that I'm continue to be judged for no matter how long I've been.
I swear to God, I have such a similar experience. My neighborhood. This happened last week, and I'll tell you. I had my nephew come up, and my neighborhood, people, I don't, it's very, it's very, you can say like people,
they'll stick out.
Yeah, so, like I brought my nephew in. He's black. He's a young kid. You know what I'm saying? About 15. And I said, yo, I need you to wash my car. Help me wash my car. You know what I'm saying? The inside vacuum. So we went in the driveway, and I never seen a neighbor ever security like in the back of the house pop on. Like it never happened. Like I've been there for over a year. And my nephew started playing some rap music, the new drill stuff. And I guess, I told him turn it down. Don't you see what type of neighborhood we're in?
Right.
I have to also look at, how I'm looked at, as a black person.
Well, when you come to my house, have you ever seen another black person on my street?
No, I haven't.
First time I brought a black person into my home, the state police came and knocked on my door. Said we heard some screaming going on. Well, number one, it was wintertime. The house was locked up. There wasn't any screaming going on. Nobody needed anything. It was because somebody came in there that they didn't like the way they looked.
Yeah, so like literally, like I seen it. I said, "Hey, man," and you know what? I know, I know that the stereotypes in America will never change. The most we could do is work on people and how they accept others or accept others' way of living or others' music. But if I was playing some rock and roll, I got my neighbor, he blasts the rock and roll. Security lights don't come on. You know what I'm saying? So I understand how people
It's
could be viewed sometimes.
stereotypical.
It's stereotype. Like I literally was in the mall myself the other day, and I was looking for something to post, and I was sitting right in the section waiting for my wife to get her nails, finish getting her nails done, and I was sitting in the section where they in the middle of the mall where they have the Christmas
Piercing pagoda and all that
necklace.
stuff, yeah.
And you know, I'm looking for because I have some type of post that I want to put down, and I wanted a particular song, and I was looking for a throwback song to state my state of mind, what I was thinking about, you know. So I'm going through the songs because, you know, songs like over generations, they kind of like, you know, get repeated. So you got some songs have the same name. So I'm playing in some of this stuff sounds like drill, you know what I mean? And I swear to God, some people walked past me and they heard the thing going. My phone, this is over. This is like doesn't get loud like that. But just because of the music, I believe they turned around and looked at me, like, you know, as if I was some type of nuisance in a big mall.
But
and,
you know what? It's easy to do too, though, because when I hear that head banging hard rock music, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What do you? Or when I hear some of the lyrics out of some of the heavy rap, what? How is that acceptable? You know what I mean? And yet people want to judge, but it's our nature.
Yeah, but then there's a lot of blending of that same music mixed in with country now. So
Listen,
you gotta
listen. Eminem has put out Christian songs.
Exactly.
Selena Gomez has gone Christian.
There's no limit. Everybody's crossing over.
Rihanna has gone Christian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you never know when that's going to change.
So when is society?
The whole point is
you
you never know when people are going to have that aha moment and change, and you cannot deny them that.
I never give up. I never give up. Yo, I swear to God, you could tell me these dudes are stone cold racist, and I will not.
Well, I had a homeless girl tell me the other day, I want to go to group with you, right? She wanted to go to prayer group. I said, well, how about group at night would be better? She said, okay, I'll meet you at 7 or 6:30. Sure enough, I went there, 6:30. She wasn't there. But what if she was and I hadn't gone?
Yeah.
You know, so as long as she tells me she's going to be there, I'm still going to go there to see if she's there.
Exactly. You don't give up on people, and you don't give up on yourself, and you're an eternal being. So, you know, this leads to, like, society and people coming home from prison and how they're treated and viewed and the stereotype, and they're not able. What do you feel on those views?
It took me 3 months to find a job when I came home. I have a well-rounded background, and I'm, you know, older. I applied everywhere. I did the workforce. I walked the streets. I was down at the library the whole 9 yards in 3 months before I could get a job.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this up. I just wanted to get into the issue of how people are stereotyped to our society, you know, and you know,
cold
how
shoulder that it brings you.
Yeah, how you kind of like shunned and whatnot, and we want to try to work on these issues and get these things.
Well, we have to because they want to get it. They want everybody to get acclimated again and be part of society. But if they don't let us in, we can't be part of society.
Yeah, so I'm Derek, okay, Swish. You viewed into Everything Exposed. All right, stay locked in.
And the silence of addiction. The silence of addiction can no longer be tolerated in our society as we mourn in our own state of what will people say so quietly. We are losing sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, fathers, mothers, and friends. So many premature funerals there are to attend. How many more obits will be written due to an unexpected or a sudden cause? The numbers are staggering and should make us stop and take pause. And what is the meaning behind suddenly and unexpected? Open your eyes. It's us failing those that needed to be protected. It is time to drop the pretenses of yesterday. We can no longer ignore it, hoping that it will go away. We'd be hard-pressed to find someone not affected, for it has touched us all. End the silence of addiction. The truth might help the next one not fall. We have to stop, put an end to the judgment that we so often fear. Could it be our own words of judgment spoken in the past that we don't want to hear? We need to redirect our silence to concern. Face the dark reality that there's so much we need to learn. Addiction isn't a 4-letter word, but it is often for sure evil and uncouth. Discovered as early as childhood and in full action by the time they are youth. Bring an end to the silence of addiction. Society needs to hear the truth today. This wasn't the future planned, but it's a debt we're having to pay. We don't keep it hush-hush or whispered respecting the ones that we've already lost. Instead, it's the survivors trying to save face, protecting reputations at all cost. Could it be the same standards of keeping appearances imposed pressures beyond sense? Caused some to turn to addiction feeling they were failures and left with no defense? How often has that proverbial glass house up on the hill been the drive behind that addiction that kills? It doesn't take long before backs are up against the wall. Addiction comes at a high price, demanding to be paid when it comes to call. Some victims of bad choices that can only end in regret, for it will grip you and strip you of your identity with only memories you fight not to forget. Addiction is no longer limited to or classified to any one particular face. It's indifferent to any one specific gender, age, or race. Addiction is no longer restricted to any one status or class. It's in the shadows of both the rich and the poor, waiting to kick some ass. Addiction, how much longer will we allow ignorance to deny us what is now reality? It's like connecting a fuel line directly to a flame and leaving just as many casualties. See, addiction thrives on our denials and shame. And what for? The protection of someone's reputation or good name? We are keeping dangerous secrets. Can we justify what for when gossip is already being spoken behind closed doors? Addiction brings suffering. It leaves devastation, and not just to the one it's claimed. We have to identify causes of past hurts or pain if this beast is to be tamed. Something else we must know: addiction doesn't travel alone. It will show you other behaviors and realities you've never witnessed or known. It keeps company with manipulation, suspicion, mistrust, stealing, and deception. Causes desperation, depression, turns rational thinking into twisted perceptions. Addiction becomes the addict's only focus, their only purpose, their only drive. A thief of their lives' dreams, leaving instead often thoughts of suicide. Or leaving them to feel like there is no other solution. They find themselves on the streets, selling their bodies in prostitution. We can't afford the silence of addiction in society today. We need to exchange words of judgment and for words that we can pray. We can't imagine the number of lives taken like tossed tokens and still deny that there are ones alive so deeply broken. Open your eyes and find your voice before being the one denied a choice. Addiction is ruthless and unforgiving, keeps us from sharing memories that we've been given, afraid of revealing something about how they survived. But sharing truths can touch others struggling to still stay alive. Make no mistake, addiction is a world war. It's for our children, our future, that we need to fight to secure. So speak out now, and not with words of shame. Put down the pointing fingers of judgment and blame. Let's end the silence, and let's come together to unite and speak proudly the names of those that we have lost in their fight.